Greetings, YouTube visitors. Here's another edition of Around the World News. It's been a while, but it's for May the 5th, 2017, in the year of our Lord. All right. So let's go over some news from this newsletter. The Fed's policy has been to stimulate higher stock prices to create a wealth effect in order to cause more consumer spending and economic growth. It failed. Close to contrary opinion sell time? Question mark. Sell in May and go away. An upcoming 10 to 15% sell-off? Question mark. Purchase some puts, some bearish ETFs, exchange traded funds in other words. It's likely to be a hot and violent summer socially in the United States and Europe. How will Iran's May 19th elections affect U.S. stock prices? Well, that's a good question. 94% of U.S. pension funds that are invested in global stocks are benchmarked MSCI indexes. South Korean stocks hit all-time highs on May 4th. Obamacare was repealed. College students shelling out a hefty $36,000 a year in tuition at a private university in Indiana will soon study strategies for resistance to Trump. Most people in Haiti live on $2 a day. Haiti has a 40% illiteracy rate. It takes an average of 19 years and 176 bureaucratic procedures to legally purchase real estate in Haiti. But multiculturalism, communism, by other means, tells us all cultures are the same. But they're not. That's a lie. 50,000 Haitians are in the United States. And then there's various links which I'll post on my discussion page of my YouTube channel. European Union stooge Macron is no real man. He's 39. His wife is 64. He married his teacher, who's 25 years older. She seduced him when he was 15. She divorced her husband and left 3 children for Macron. How, for Pete's sake, can this guy be considered normal? Much less run for the French presidency. And Macron has the gall to tell Poland to take more invading migrants after how invading migrants have destroyed France. Of course, quote, of course the communists will support Macron since he's a globalist. It was only to be expected that he had some accounts offshore to hide money. He's a real rat, unquote. That's what W.S. European historian said. That doesn't make sense. W.S. Okay. Those are the initials. I don't know who that is. European historian. My problem is that he was 15 when she lured him in. Indeed, her children were in the same class as the one where they met. It's a very unstable woman who would abandon her own children because she wants to have sex with someone else's child. That's pretty darn crazy. Well, that's what a reader of this newsletter said. As I said, with the loosing of Satan, we're going to see all kinds of crazy activity. Now, the middle class, as you know, has been getting hit very hard. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. The percentage increase in share of income of the richest 1%. United States has the highest, I think. Then followed by Australia, Sweden, Norway, Ireland, Italy, and Japan, and New Zealand. Household incomes in most countries in Western Europe rose faster than in the United States from 1991 to 2010. The middle class in the United States is smaller than in Western Europe. And then there's some graphs here. I'm not sure how to interpret them or read them, so I'm going to skip them. I'll just say this, that middle income households have disposable incomes that are 2/3 to double the national median disposable income after incomes have been adjusted for household size. Lower income households have incomes less than 2/3 of the median, and upper income households have incomes that are more than double the median. The income boundaries are based on each country's own median disposable household income. Source: Pew Research Center analysis data from the Cross National Data Center in Luxembourg. All right. Yeah, are you part of the middle class or the lower income class? I mean, there's basically no middle income class anymore in the United States. I mean, it's very, very small. Well, we've got a lot of graphs here. I don't know if there's any more potatoes, meat and potatoes here. Here we go. We have classes of protected and unprotected citizens. The economic challenges we face are real. Fear or angst is often a perfectly reasonable response. Economic strain can lead directly to sickness, disability, and sometimes suicide or fatal illness. The middle class is a fairly new development in economics. Up until the last century or two, most societies had a tiny, wealth elite and great masses of common laborers. There is reason for concern that the middle class is really under pressure. It's not just in their heads, it's an everyday real-world situation. What's middle class? Pew defines it as adults living in households with disposable incomes ranging from 2/3 to twice the national median disposable income. In the United States, that means a 2010 after-tax income between $35,294 and $105,881. Pew found that from 1991 to 2010, the percentage of adults living in the middle class households in the United States shrank from 62% to 59%. In 2010, 59% of U.S. adults were in the middle class, 15% were above it, and 26% below it. The United States had the lowest, or has the smallest percentage of middle class adults of any of the advanced economies. If the average person in this country feels as though they're going nowhere fast, there's a real reason for it. Median income in the United States is actually down over the past 17 years and is only 3% higher now than it was 30 years ago. Life has gotten much more difficult for average Americans. The average income for the top 5% is $350,000. To be certified as a 1%er, you need to bring home an adjusted gross income of $465,000 more for the 2014 year. According to data from the IRS, to make the grade in New York, you will need about $8 million in annual income. But that amount wouldn't help you very much in Teton County, Wyoming. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Teton. T-E-T-O-N. Teton County, Wyoming. We're talking Jackson Hole here, where you need a tidy $28 million per year to make it to the top, into the top 1%. In Quitman County, Georgia, you only need $127,000 a year to be elite. In LaSalle County, Texas, you had to make $6 million to land in the top 1%. There's been almost no movement for the bottom 60%, while the middle quintile has grown somewhat, and this won't surprise anyone. The top 20% and 5% have done very well. The bottom quintile saw their income grow by only 25% over the last 49 years, less than 0.5% per year. Interestingly, the fourth quintile grew even less than the bottom one, at around 19%, mainly because of government programs that supported those in the lowest 20%. If you can put up with the academic language that does its best to obscure what's actually being said, you will find that there is a general consensus around the idea that having a lot of money does not make us happy once our basic needs are fulfilled. There is, however, some research, and it's controversial, which indicates that relative income is important. A majority of respondents would rather have more relative income than more absolute income, especially if they are relatively lower income than everybody else. We just seem to be wired to want to keep up with or do better than the Joneses. And now many people suspect they're doing worse when we have an economic and political situation like the one we have today, when there's actually time to make proactive decisions that it appears to be the most psychologically difficult to do We procrastinate. This is what's happened under the Bush administration and under the Obama administration. So here we have a Republican, Bush, and a Democrat, Obama. Neither president has really helped the average American increase their wealth. Again, if you're a Democrat and you think that the Democrats are for the poor man, you're wrong. Republicans have generally spent more money in the areas of war, building up the military, whereas Democrats still spend more money on domestic welfare, social programs. So they're both guilty of spending more money. And they're not helping create more jobs for the average American. And both of their platforms are killing the middle class with their tax structure. I don't think Trump is going to help the middle class either, to be honest. He's doing some things right, but I don't really think Trump is going to change or make America great again, or even drain the swamp like he promised. Finally, I think we are approaching that moment when the two greatest bubbles in human history, sovereign debt and government promises, which are conflated in many people's minds, will burst, and politicians and central banks will be forced to take actions that are unthinkable today. The wealthiest, 0.001%, don't have to worry. They'll be fine. They'll be fine in just about any scenario. But people in the 85 to 95th percentiles are in danger of taking a fall in the next big market and economic upheaval. And of course, the lower middle in the 25 to 50th percentile are very vulnerable to downward mobility. Part of our angst is that we feel captive to forces beyond our control. Now is the time you should be thinking hardest about taking action to have your house in order when we hit the next rough patch. So says John Molden in an article titled Angst in America, Middle Class Blues. Maybe it could also be called the shrinking middle class. That was found at maldeneconomics.com, dated April 30th. And the remark by Artie McMaster. The estimated investable net worth of the median household in the United States is about $6,000. This means that the most wealthy of the bottom 62 million U.S. households has only about $6,000 to tide them over or to retire on. That is very, very sad. You might need to take on a second job. And certainly men and women are both going to have to work today, okay? I'm sorry. Traditionally, the woman hasn't had to work. That's all changed because of our government. And it's our government's fault. I'm sorry to say. Because of inflation and the incentives of having two people work in the household, husbands and wives, whereas used to everything was centered around the husband, and that's the biblical model. Today, it's not that way. There's a lot of good articles here. U.S. middle class is fading. Redefining the middle class. It isn't what you earn and owe. It's what you own and generate that generates income. You need to have income-producing assets, in other words. And you know what's interesting? The average person, when they buy their first home, for example, what do? They sell it for a profit at some point. They move into a more expensive home, taking on more debt. And then they move into another expensive home, take on more debt after about 5 to 7 years. Instead of paying off their first home and having an income-producing asset where they can bring in rental income and then using some of their profits to move into another home, they keep moving into other homes. They never pay off their first home. That's not too wise. Let's see. What else? America's working class is falling further behind. The rich-poor gap, the difference in annual income between households in the top 20% and those in the bottom 20%, increased from $29,200 to $189,600 between 2010 and 2015. Computers and robots are taking over many jobs, eliminating many workers while boosting the productivity of specialized employees. Clinging to death or debt. The root word of debt is death. What is the essential difference in the personal responsibility level? The independent financial status and the freedom status of children versus slaves? The answer? Nothing. All right, hope you enjoyed this edition of Around the World News. Until we meet again.